what are the things that a financial advisor can assist with?
Okay, good. Very good question there. So I'm going to speak in general on that. So, of course, a financial advisor can help you with budgeting. Again, before you can determine whether you want to invest or can invest, we have to first get a grasp on how much money you have available. And believe it or not, sometimes clients do not know because we're spending every day, whether we're using our debit cards or whatever, and really have no idea. And for me, I love to call it the pages of Revelations because you got to get organized. You have to understand how much it takes to run your household. Because again, how can we determine if we're on the right track with a plan if we don't even know what resources we have to work with? It's like trying to put together a football team and we never had a tryout to see who could throw a football, who could run the fastest, who could hit the hardest. We just say, oh, everybody line up. Well, you look like you could do something. Or, oh, I like you. Let's go in the game for the Super Bowl. That's a recipe for disaster. So you have to first find out what resources you have. So it starts with planning, budgeting. Insurance or risk management. That's another foundation area of your overall financial picture. And that's an area, unfortunately, for many in our community that we tend to neglect, but comes back to bite us in a big way when, at the most inopportune time, say at the death of an income earner, at the sickness of an income earner, or what have you. So making sure you have adequate coverages, making sure you have the right amounts of coverage. Just because Shaq gets on TV and him and Montel Jordan telling you this is how we do it, you may not be doing it right. You may not have the right amount because a lot of times, well, truth be told, in the case of the general, they're only covering you for state minimum. If you are a homeowner and only have coverage for state minimum, you are literally walking on a ticking time bomb. Okay, because the reality is this: in Louisiana, the requirement is $25,000 of liability. So if I'm at fault and I got $25,000 of liability and I go hit a $50,000 car and total it, the general gonna write that check for $20,000 real quick because they're out of it. They paid theirs, but I'm still in the hole for another 25. Guess where it's gonna come from, y'all? It's either they're gonna put a lien on my house and take it, or they're gonna garnish my wages. So it's important for us to know, and that's just one quick example. I could give so many, whether we're talking about life insurance, whether we're talking about auto insurance, and so forth. And while I'm thinking about it, then I'll move on. GoFundMe is not a financial planning strategy. Car washes and suppers are not financial planning strategies. Okay?
Yep. Okay.
We are adults. And so if we want to talk about building generational wealth and getting to the next level, then we got to do the right things. So as I finish up the answers there, so whether we talk about budgeting, to income tax planning, to estate planning, insurance planning, investment planning, if you have a small business and that advisor has experience and or expertise there, they can do that as well in helping you to put together a business plan. And then last but not least, charitable planning. Because guess what? This might be a surprise to some of you, but when we die, you can't take it with you. Okay? So you should have a plan in place as to, from a philanthropic standpoint, as to what you want to do to help your community. Okay, beyond just your family and so forth. Okay, so I'll move on. So that was a good question there.
Thank you, Ricardo. So we have a fact drop we're going to drop on the screen really quickly.
Okay, so this fact drop is, are you going to read it or did you want me to read it?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so research has shown that households that work with a professional financial planner were more likely to make better financial decisions than those without a planner, taking into account portfolio risk levels, savings habits, life insurance, like we just mentioned, revolving credit, and emergency savings. I'll sum it up this way as an addendum to what I just mentioned. Working with a financial planner allows for you to take out making emotional decisions. think back for yourselves how many times we've made decisions emotionally that when we settled down, we said, oh, wow, I made that decision when I was mad, or I made that decision, or I bought that when I was depressed and realized it was not a good decision. Well, same thing here with the financial planner. You have that person to bounce your financial questions or concerns off of, and with their expertise, they can say, no, that's not the thing to do. Let me explain to you what's really going on in the market and so forth. And that's why you see such different results. So that's a good fact drop there. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. And I have a couple questions on the chat. Okay. Does it matter how much one's income is before getting a financial advisor?
That's another very good question as well. And it really depends, and here's what I mean with that, because there's no clear-cut answer. It really depends upon what are the requirements of that financial advisor. Different advisors, different firms have certain minimum requirements that they insist on to take on a new client. There's a firm who has a commercial who shall remain nameless for these purposes, but you might figure it out. They talk about, oh, they're a fiduciary. And it sounds like, oh, that's a big thing, when really, to someone like myself who's in the industry and manage money, realize that when you're licensed and out there, you're automatically a fiduciary. So that's nothing extra, but they make it seem like they're doing something that everybody else isn't doing, and so forth. And so they go through this whole list of things. It's, well, we don't charge commissions when we work with our clients. That's because they only do certain types of accounts. Now, the point I'm getting at with this particular company, and you'll probably see 3 or 4 of their commercials before the night is out. What they don't tell you, if you look sometimes on the commercial in the small print at the bottom, it tells you minimum $500,000 to start. Now, think about that. If the minimum requirement to work with them is $500,000, look at how many of us that it would cut out. So it varies depending upon the advisor or their firm. Some advisors, some firms have a flexible, a requirement as it relates to what they will start with a client, from that end. So that's when you're doing your shopping around, to ask the advisor, what are your minimums? And what you have or don't have, and then you go from there. We choose to have a flexible requirement coming in. I tell folks the number one ingredient I look for is an open mind. Because if you have the right mind frame and a commitment to doing it, well, we don't mind helping you as a small client to get to the next level. So we have clients that are, small to 7-8 figures of assets and everything in between. So that's a very good question. All right, next question.
Next fact drop.
Okay, I see one here says, what is the cost of using a financial advisor? Very good question there. And it really depends upon the needs of your particular situation. So when you're in that initial phase of doing fact finding and trying to assess, where you are and what your needs are, some advisors charge on an hourly basis. Some charge on a flat fee as it relates to doing planning. Then when we get over to the asset management side, again, depending on the amount of dollars you're working with, there may be commissions or there may be an asset management fee. So basically, I'm saying it's an a la carte menu depending upon what scenario that the advisor will work with. So it can really range, but that's an easy question to answer once you're sitting down with the advisor. And I believe the next question.
It looks like we have the fact drop, the sandwich generation.
All right, good. So this is a good one here. The sandwich generation is a fast growing group of individuals between the ages of 40 and 50, caught in the middle of caring for their children and their aging parents simultaneously. These caregivers experience high levels of stress. Amen. Currently, statistics show that 47% of adults in their 40s and 50s are supporting an aging parent in their 70s while also managing their kids. The typical American sandwich generation caregiver is female in her mid-40s, married, employed. 70% of women and only 30% of men adopt the responsibility to care for an elderly relative with chronic health issues, which causes an imbalance in expectations and increases familial stress. I certainly can attest to this because I was one of those folks who took care of my mom with Alzheimer's. So I know how that is. And this is a fast growing group for a variety of reasons. Number one, our parents are living longer, okay? The other side of that equation, that the kids are not getting out as fast as they once did. You know, it used to be when you got 18, you know, your dad would stick that army pamphlet under your pillow or say, okay, where you going, when you're getting out of here. Now kids are 20, 25, 30 years old coming back knocking on the door and say, Mom and Dad, I'm home. And you say, what are you doing here? You know, and that's for a variety of reasons, you know, and so forth. But what it does is that you as the caregiver for your adult parents on that side, it creates not only emotional stress, but financial stress. And a lot of this has to do with what we've been talking about from the beginning, especially when we're talking about on the older parent side, their lack of financial planning, okay? Because, okay, they're living longer, but if they don't have the resources to sustain themselves, then who does their responsibility and burden fall on? Their adult kids. Or let's say, for instance, okay, let's say, like the illustration shows here, they have a chronic health illness. You know, one of the fastest growing ailments for the elderly now is dementia, you know, some form of dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's or what have you. Okay, no one planned for that, but they have to be accounted for and cared for. Well, that's not a free process, nor is it cheap. You know, and so that's why, going back to what we talked about earlier in the financial planning process, that's where truly a financial advisor comes in to ask all of those questions. Remember when I said about the come to Jesus moment and the pages of Revelation? That's when we ask those questions. Do you have aging parents that you're taking care of? Are they adequately funded for that, or will that be your responsibility? Because guess what? Every dollar that you have to put aside to take care of their needs is $1 less for your own retirement or your kids' college education, or both. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so while we're going to the next slide here, I see someone asked about small businesses and should I have an LLC business? The answer to that is it really depends. You know, so an LLC is a limited liability corporation. You know, so it depends upon the type of business. It depends upon whether or not you have multiple partners. It depends upon the type of liability exposure you have as it relates to your type of business. It depends upon your tax planning concerns. See, there it goes again about the importance of having a financial advisor or a CPA. So in order to adequately answer that question, then first, a lot of other questions like I'm asking now would have to be answered. So sitting down with your CPA, sitting down with your attorney who would have to draft up the LLC, or sitting down with your financial advisor, just like these questions that I just asked would have to be asked to determine which type or style of business is most appropriate for you. So that's a good question. Okay, ladies, back to you all.
There's another one. Can one have multiple financial advisors?
Okay, very good question. And I'll answer it like this. Can you have multiple husbands? Well, you can in Utah, but that's different. I'm only semi-joking. And what the point I'm getting at with that is that different advisors have different philosophies and styles and means of management. And so as I'll equate it to a football team. Can you have more than one head coach? No, you're gonna have coaches for specific areas. You might have the offensive, line coach, or the defensive line, or the defensive back coaches, or the linebackers coaches. But at the end of the day, all of them have to report back to the head coach. Okay. And so look at your situation just like a football team. You are the owner. The financial advisor is the head coach who works for you. And then all of the other professionals are the position coaches. The CPA, that's a position coach. The estate planning attorney, that's a position coach. The insurance agent, the banker, all of those, and the financial advisor or head coach, their job is to make sure all of those pieces are working in concert to get the results that you, the owner, wants. Now, when you're getting up into mega millions, then there are times when people will have multiple asset managers for different pools. But I mean, if we're talking less than 7 or 8 figures of money, then no, it's not cost effective, and they may pull you in multiple directions, and then you end up really overpaying. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me go on to the next question. We have 20 minutes, by the way, just FYI. So we have a question. Do you have a process for providing financial planning services and investment advice, or will the client have to have an idea or knowledge of investments?
Very good question. And so when you're talking about a financial advisor, and all of this really goes to the very beginning of establishing a relationship. And I always love to use examples that are relatable. Remember the very first time you go to a brand new doctor, they don't say, well, come on in, Ava, welcome in. We're going to cut you open now. You can say, well, hold up, doc. Give me that clipboard. We all know that clipboard that they give you after they collect the copay. And then they ask you, have you had this? What medicines here? Are you allergic to this? What's your family history? And all of those things. Well, they're getting that stuff for a reason, because they're developing a profile to see exactly who you are, where you are, and based upon those results, then they try to determine a plan of action. They may say, well, based upon how you ask these questions, well, we better call Jesus. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. They may say, well, oh, we better run some tests. We better get some blood work. We better get an EKG. Well, the same thing with the financial advisor. That's why we are starting with that initial information, because it is not uncommon in my experience over these 38 years now for folks to come in and say they have one area of a priority in their mind, and then when we look at the data, it's something totally different. It's not consistent at all, and it always bears itself out in the Q&A as we go through it, you know, from that end. And then from there, that's why you want to deal with an experienced advisor, because then they can modify their plan of action for you based upon your level of experience and understanding, you know, of it. If they can't do that, then they shouldn't be an advisor. No different than the doctor. You know, when they're prescribing a plan of care, their explanation for it will modify based upon your level of comprehension of what they're trying to do.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, we have another question, or we can go with that fact drop, 41%.
Right. We'll do the fact drop first, and then we'll get to the question there. 41% of Americans say it's going to take a miracle to be ready for retirement. Overall, 59% of Americans said they accept that they will have to keep working longer. We're going to stay on this screen here for a second or two, because this is important. And this is one that is disproportionately affecting our communities. So let me go back and say, overall, 59% of Americans said that they accept that they will have to keep working longer. Now, that's assuming that you have good enough health to continue to work longer. So that's a big assumption. Now, while 36% now believe that they will never have enough money to be able to retire, according to the latest data from the Texas Global Retirement Index. And the Texas is one of those money managers that I'm familiar with. They're on my short list. So look at what that's saying, y'all. Folks are realizing now, unfortunately, that retirement don't have nothing to do with your age. It don't have nothing to do with your years of service. It has everything to do with the amount of money and how well you've prepared or not. If I'm 95 and broke, I gotta work if I want to eat. If I'm 25 and have a few $1 million, I have the option to retire, and so forth. The problem has been that it has taken many people too long to start getting serious about their money. You know, the best time to start doing all of this kind of stuff is in our 20s. But let's be honest, in our 20s, we ain't hearing it. It's time to turn up. It's my time. I got to get out of school. I got to party, travel all over the world. And that's what we do. And before you know it, 10 years have passed and now you're 30. Oh, but I sacrificed so much. When I was in school, I deserved to have these 10 cars and all of that. And then another 5, 10 years have passed. And then if there's kids, well, you know, you got obligations to them. And then before you know it, you're 45, 50 years old. And you say, uh-oh, I was talking about retiring at 60 and I got $100 in my 401k.
You don't have to throw me under the bus, Ricardo.
I didn't say that. And that's what happens. So then all of a sudden we panic. And then that's when we're trying to, see what the Powerball and all of that kind of stuff. Like, really? Is that a plan? You know, and so forth. So it's important for us. So it's never too late to start. You should always try to work your money, because whatever result you get, you're still better off than what you would have been without. But the reality of it is, for some folks, you know, when they get to those quote unquote golden years, and we look at what they have or what they don't have in the 401k or whatever, then they come to that harsh realization, oh, I can't stop working. And I go back to where I started. They say they're going to continue to work, but that's provided the Lord gives you enough health and strength to work. Right. And look at what has happened here with the pandemic and how a lot of folks were disproportionately impacted. So we'll hit another fact drop here. So this is interesting. I love this one here when I was preparing for today. 93% of millionaires said they got their wealth because they worked hard, not because they had big salaries. Let me repeat that last part. Not because they had big salaries. We see football players and rappers make more money in a year than many of us will make in a lifetime, and end up flat broke. I was reading earlier today. I didn't realize this, and I was surprised and disappointed. Rihanna not too long ago had to file bankruptcy. Think about that, y'all. She's not worrying about a rude boy. She should have been worried about her rude bank account. But anyway, I'm just saying. So she had to file bankruptcy. Damon Dash, yeah, I said it.
Like, don't come for Riri now.
But I say all of that to say this, because we assume, because we see them on TV, we assume when they're doing all of this stuff that they got it all going on. Tracy Braxton, we know, unfortunately, just recently passed. They pulled out her numbers. Now, here she was, a part of the singing Braxton family. They had the reality TV show on. And when they pulled up her net worth, it was less than $1 million. Wow. Think about that. Less than $1 million. Now, I'm not saying she needed to be on the Forbes 500 list, but you would assume, with her being on TV, assume singing with the family and all of that, that she'd at least be a millionaire. Right. She was a thousandaire. Okay? Yeah, I said that too, Amanda. But that's real, y'all.
One more question, I believe. Sorry. We have one more question.
Okay, let me finish the last part of this here, and then we'll get that question. Only 31% averaged $100,000 a year over the course of their career, and 1/3 never made 6 figures in any single working year of their career. What's the moral of that story? It's not how much you make. It's what you do with what you have.
Yes.
That's the key there. And then going to this last question here, is it ever too early or too late to start saving or investing or working with a financial advisor? Absolutely not. Because time is money, and you always want to do the best with what your resources are. Now, of course, you got to manage your expectations, because if I start with $1 today, I can't expect to have $1 million by the end of the year. You know, but again, whatever you do, you will be better off than not doing anything at all. And certainly having that financial advisor will help you to be in a better situation. Okay?
Yes.
Anything else?
We have one last question. It's what is the difference between a financial planner and a financial advisor?
Very good question. I'm glad that one came up. So Unfortunately, across the United States, many states do not regulate who calls themselves financial advisor, financial planner, and so forth. Some states do, other states do not. So it is important for you to do your homework. When you're thinking about a potential advisor, you have to ask the right questions. What licenses do you have? How long have you been doing this? What certifications do you have? What's your educational background? If they start talking, well, I watched the YouTube video last week, run. Okay, so don't get caught up in the titles. Make sure you ask the right questions about their credentials and licenses. And in some cases, those who call themselves financial advisors are nothing more than just stockbrokers. Okay, so that's why you have to ask the question, do you actually do planning? Or are you just, like we see in the movies on the TV, they're on the phone all day saying, oh, I got a hot stock tip for you. So you got to do your due diligence and ask the right questions. What's your process? What do you do? What are your credentials? What are your licenses? What do you do as far as continuing education? All of those questions will be able to help you to determine whether or not that person is truly a legitimate, complete financial planner, or whether or not they're just a stock jockey, as we call them. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but you want to hire the right person for the right situation. Okay, there you go. All right, turn the floor back over to you all.
Any more questions, ladies and gents? You have 8 minutes. Ask away. Just ask.
What is an NFT?
Okay, wow. What hit me with that one? NFTs, Bitcoin, and all that other kind of stuff. NFT stands for non-fungible token. Okay, and it's one of these new offshoots of so-called investments out here. And I'm still doing the research on it. And it's still unclear, because I can tell you, being a licensed person in the industry and so forth, a lot of this stuff we are still forbidden to do. Now, think about that for a second. When you're talking about the financial industry, which is in the trillions of dollars, that is transacted on a daily basis, and you have some of this new stuff coming out, and they don't want to touch it when they are in the money business, that should raise the red flag to us and say, oh, what's really going on? So a lot of new stuff is being created that has no validity at all. So right now it's playing on the hype. Okay, if you put enough hype behind something, people will buy anything. Case in point, Dogecoin. I know you all have heard of it. If not, Google it. Dogecoin was created to compete with Bitcoin. However, the man who created Dogecoin got on TV on the financial channel and said, folks, this ain't real. I made this as a joke to see how many gullible people would fall for it. And yet people are putting hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in this stuff. Okay? And so I see in here it said it was created to have a place to spend cryptocurrency. But there's a question on the validity of cryptocurrency too. So let me ask you this. A lot of times people say, oh, I don't want to invest in the stock market because it's too risky. It goes up and down. Now, mind you, the stock market is the stock and the ownership of the companies that our very lives keep in business every day, because we need their products and services like we talked about earlier. So we are afraid to own a part of Exxon and Walmart and PG&E and all the rest, but we don't think it's risky to buy something that's housed on somebody's personal computer that you don't know who they are, that if you forget your password, you have no recourse, that if their computer crashes, you have no recourse, that if they take their computer and skip across the world, you have no recourse. But you say, that's safe. Really? So I'd rather that than to invest in Exxon? Really? So we have to be careful. There's a lot of hype out there. Now, eventually, there will be some, and like I said, there's no regulation with cryptocurrency. So if somebody steals your currency, what recourse you gonna have? You might be able to call Tyrone, but you can't call the FBI. You can't call FDIC because there is no regulation. You can't go to the government. So why would you want to put your money in something like that? And yes, people are getting ripped off every single day. But a lot of that I attribute to folks not understanding or maximizing on what's already in existence, that they can make all the money they want. You know, I tell folks, you want to jump into the other stuff? First, maximize on the stocks, the bonds, the real estate. Master that first. Now, once you've mastered that, meaning you up in the 9 figures, then you can go play with this other stuff. But we ain't mastered that, but we're going to go jump to Bitcoin and Satoshis and all this other stuff that Amanda likes or whatever. Yep.
Nice.
I couldn't resist. All right.
All right. So this was excellent information. All of the questions are great. I hope that people are got something out of this this discussion this evening. And so we do want to give a little something away to somebody if they are to answer. Whoever answers the question the quickest and correctly will get a nice little giveaway from us. So what is the question going to be? Who can answer, what can a financial advisor help you with?
Retirement.
Ooh, all right now. Who said that?
KH.
All right, we want to make sure you get your giveaway. So we'll send it to you directly in the chat. And on here, you will be given a free consultation with the wonderful Ricardo in regards to your finances. So make sure you reach out to him. We'll send you the link in the chat for you to book your free consultation, to have a nice, real discussion with Ricardo about your future if you have any questions.
All righty, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for your support in attending today. We appreciate it. So thank you everyone for joining our presentation tonight. We are of service to you and we love to do these kind of things. We would love to do it more often when time is allowed. If you want to stay connected to us, feel free to follow us on social media. On Instagram, we're our M.I.S.C LLC, and on Facebook. And then you could also go and visit our website at www.MISCenterprisesllc.com. We have some events coming up, one of which is on March 25th, where we will be getting fun in today with M.I.S.C. And this is a reoccurring monthly activity where we do things surrounding health and fun. So on March 25th, we will be dancing in Oakley at the Step Jazz Fitness Studio at 7:30. So you can RSVP through our website. And then we have our Getting in the Mix with M.I.S.C Business Mixer next month, April 15th. So make sure you check out our website, RSVP and register. And we definitely appreciate your space and your grace today and your attendance. You could be anywhere else, but you were here with us this evening. We want to give a special thank you to Mr. Ricardo Thomas for sharing his expertise, because you didn't have to do it, but you did. We appreciate your willingness to give all of the information and answer all of the questions. I know how that can be really, 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 time consuming for you, but we appreciate your spirit and your heart and your willingness to give without any expectations of return. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we wish you all a great rest of your evenings. Take care.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.